I have a serious question. Why isn't the mainstream media telling people that a US based blockchain company is in Ukraine, has been for the last 3 years, helping Ukraine develop a blockchain based payment system? Well, that would probably resemble the highest form of market manipulation, especially if it was clear competition to the big B, or now the big X. Does seem like XRP is being anointed to the mainstream, doesn't it? But we have a story here, guys, that is coming out of Meridian 2024. So it's a few weeks old. But forgive me, we cover so much on this channel. Some things will slip through the cracks, but I always keep my eyes open. DCM has proudly announced the launch of the Transparent Network, which is going to be a consortium of banks that will be making use of their payment message platform, their ISO compliant payment message platform. Bet you haven't heard that in a while. I told you guys that it was still relevant. So what is PMP? Well, it's an innovative technology layer that enables seamless programmable payment flows for financial institutions, merchants, and customers. Our platform ensures that all participants benefit from secure, instant, and cost-effective payment messaging with real-time callbacks to streamline decision-making. Now, you may be asking yourself, where's Stellar involved here? Well, they make it clear as day. Blockchain integration, powered by Stellar, brings an extra layer of security to the platform. Each transaction is recorded in an immutable ledger, ensuring compliance, trust, and transparency. So, this story was posted originally, it looks like, Forbes Ukraine. Obviously, I need to follow them just in case they do this again and we miss it. This wouldn't have gotten pushed to the top of the feeds, so to speak. But this is a real-time billboard here in the streets, okay? So what I'm going to show you in this episode is the history of how we got to this point. Because this DCM, guys, and this consortium of banks, this represents a move, a massive move by those in power in Ukraine to usher in a digital payment system. And up to this point, the only blockchain-based payment system out there is Stellar Lumens. When I started covering this story, I thought that that would change at one point. It's been 3.5 years, folks, and it hasn't changed at all. In fact, their relationship has got even deeper. And that's going to be the core of this episode. Before we dive into it, I got to introduce myself. Lots of new faces to the channel. Thank you guys for 32,000 subs. It's been a wonderful ride. Can't wait for the next 4 years. But I'm Wade Teamer. You're listening to another edition of the DHN Crypto Podcast. I've been in the space since 2019, and I've researched over 1,000 digital assets. The number one reason I run this channel is to share all this knowledge with the people, because it is a lot, ladies and gentlemen. All I ask in return, you hit that like button, but don't do it for me. Do it for crypto. Especially in this case, let's drop one down for XLM. Before we get into this good, though, one more thing. Gotta urge you to download the 5 Verticals of Crypto PDF, also known as the DHN Crypto Starter Kit. You'll get an understanding of this industry through these 5 verticals. These terms, these categories will help you define what you see coming out of the crypto space. You'll also get a criteria to evaluate crypto assets. Listen, you don't have to invest in any of the assets we cover on this channel. The majority of the audience over here, we are thinking towards the new financial system and the pieces and components that will be included in that. That's our angle. That's our conversation over here. But with this criteria, it will give you the opportunity to evaluate any asset you want to get into, even if it's a meme coin. All right? I leave it open so that people can make their own educated decisions. You'll also get links to various crypto ecosystems, good and bad. Some we cover on the channel, some we don't. Tools and resources, news outlets, things like that. This is the 2024 edition. I am working on 2025, so expect to see that in the coming weeks. Now, let's get back to this transparent network and the history of Stellar's work in Ukraine. Like I said, this goes back as far as 2021, guys. Stellar Development Foundation established a relationship with the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine. The whole point was to develop Ukraine's digital infrastructure, to modernize it. And by the end of this episode, I'm going to show you a clip that was released in 2022, shortly after the invasion, that illustrates an idea that has honestly been in place prior to 2020. We're talking about going as far back as 2017 here, folks. But as far as Stellar Development, they got involved in January of 2021 with a memorandum of understanding and cooperation within which they will work on the development of a strategy for virtual assets in Ukraine. Under the memorandum, the Ministry of Digital Transformation and SDF will work to develop a modern virtual asset market infrastructure and enhance Ukraine's status as an innovative digital country in the financial market in Eastern Europe. Now, 12 months after this news, we got this story. Ukraine electronic hryvnia pilot launched by Tascom Bank and Bit on Stellar. Bit, you may be familiar with if you were here with us last month during the episode where we covered Whitney Webb's shocking revelations. She brought up Brian Allgood, and I showed you Mr. Allgood is the inventor of central bank digital currencies. One of the first networks he decided to work with outside of the one he was developing on his own was Stellar. And that partnership has gotten stronger ever since. So when she dropped his name in that video, I told you, she knows a lot. I totally believe it. But you can see here, December 14th, 2021, global fintech Bit and Tascom Bank, one of Ukraine's oldest commercial banks, have launched a pilot project to issue an electronic hryvnia on Stellar. As part of the pilot, the cross-border team will test the electronic hryvnia on the use cases of programmable payroll for public employees at DIIA, an IT solutions enterprise, as well as for peer-to-peer payments and merchant payments. So I have a clip that I'm going to share with you. I have a couple clips, actually, in this episode. We're going to try to squeeze this in. But to the point of payroll for public employees, the current Minister of Digital Transformation, Mikhail Fedorov, I'm going to show you where he's told a room full of people how he plans to be the first person to use the Stellar-based electronic hryvnia and plans to get paid in the electronic hryvnia. I'm going to show you this. But before we get to that, I have one here for you. This DCM puts this together perfectly to tell us the story leading up to the emergence of Transparent Network dates back to 2021. In this interview here with the Washington Post, Danielle Dixon tells Kathy Bird exactly how this all got started. Let's listen.
From that, how has your work in Ukraine evolved? Most recently, we heard you're collaborating with banks and other partners to stand up something really exciting on a national level.
Yeah, I think it's been great because we initially started working with them to pilot, which is sort of a version of the digital hryvnia that they could put on chain and they could see how that worked. That was the first thing we then worked with them to deliver aid through the UNHCR. And now we're working with them on this transparency payment network that they're developing there. And this is a consortium of banks and a digital provider that have come together to be able to provide instant payments on chain. Again, that's with peer-to-peer, but also to merchants. When you get merchants involved, it makes it so that there's no need to cash out ever. And you can just use and buy the resources that you need using that. And with all this, the reformation and all the money coming in to be able to create and develop Ukraine again once the war is over, this is going to be a really important part. And one of the things why Zelensky wanted a cashless society is the idea, and this is one of the reasons why the UNHCR really likes the blockchain too, it's an immutable public record. It eliminates fraud, makes it very simple, it's very transparent. Anybody can check to see where the value is being transferred, and that is huge for everywhere, but particularly I think Zelensky thought in Ukraine.
So let me get this straight. We have a consortium of banks in war-torn Ukraine using a US-based blockchain to develop a transparent payment network. I just wanted to clarify that. Clarify that with you and myself, because that's what this appears to be. And again, when I started following the story a few years ago, I Part of me wanted for this to not be as real as it has become, because it almost lined up with the whole Hedera SpaceX type of story. This is major. You have an entire country putting the future of their digital infrastructure on Stellar. It's a whole country. The guise of the media and the conflict, of course, would be a distraction. But guys, we're looking at Prozora.network. This is the website for the transparent network, as you can see. Innovative platform empowering cost-efficient financial transactions in real time. This is resembling a payment software site that we've seen several times before. And I want you to understand what's going on here. What we have is a software firm that is making use of the Stellar blockchain in their toolkit. That toolkit is what drives the product that they then present to these banks. And ladies and gentlemen, the banks that they've chosen, and not just banks, retailers, merchants as well. One of the largest banks in Ukraine, forgive me if I can't pronounce this name, but it's the National Bank of Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen. This is the one driving all of the funding, all of the initiatives, pushing forth amendments, things like that. But what I found to be interesting was this article here, October 4th, if I'm not mistaken. I know dates are written differently overseas. But you can see the headline. In Ukraine, a modern project of instant payments, Prozora Morez, was presented. And listen to how they describe the advantages of this, guys. The participants expect that during the next 2 years, Prozora Morez will process at least 30% of all retail payments and 80% of money transfers in Ukraine. This is the network that is utilizing the Stellar blockchain to verify and record their transactions. According to this, coming from the National Bank of Ukraine, it's projected that it'll be at least 30% of retail and 80% of all transfers. Again, recorded on the Stellar blockchain. Advantages include calculations in seconds, free peer-to-peer transfers, half the fees for sellers compared to other payment systems. The network is built on the basis of the electronic payment system of the MBU, SEP, and ensures the absence of intermediaries between banks and compliance with legal requirements. How can a person use the network? This is interesting as well. All the client needs is a mobile application. When paying in the store, show or scan a QR code. When paying online, select the transparent network option on the website and confirm the payment. For peer-to-peer transfer, just find your relative, friend, or acquaintance in a phone book or send a QR code or link in any messenger. Wow. Wow. Read this a couple times, obviously, before turning the camera on, and it still made me say, wow. We have a MoneyGram in Ukraine. This is the equivalent of MoneyGram. This is the equivalent of the MasterCard payment network. This is something that will be so familiar to people, and they won't even realize that it's running on a blockchain network. However, investors will know now. Again, that's why I led with the question, why isn't mainstream media letting the world know that an American-based blockchain is in Ukraine, helping them develop a national payment network and a digital currency? Member banks for the NABU, the big ones. Citibank. That was a shocker. ING, right? BNP Barnabas. So these are the names of the banks that are a part of this consortium that will be using Stellar's blockchain technology to verify their transactions. Now, Daniil also mentioned commerce, merchants, retailers. Well, this is a site called Rosetka, and according to my research, this is the equivalent of Walmart, Amazon, eBay over there. Been around since 2013, 2012. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Come across a lot of dates every day, guys. but you can look this company up. Very reputable, right? They're also a part of this. Because when we go back to the transparent payment networks, you see the partners? This is the largest e-commerce retailer, online retailer in Ukraine. Will be processing transactions on Stellar's ledger. But to put the icing on top of this, guys, to really bring it all together, Chainalysis reported in September, Ukraine is the 6th country in the world in terms of crypto assets adoption. But it really gets interesting when you dig into why. The story of Ukraine and the remaining portions of this episode, I'm going to show you how they are literally at the beginning of a digital transformation, not because they want to, not because there's a financial incentive. It's because they have no choice. They have no choice. Okay? Ukraine has been ranked 6th in global crypto adoption ranking by Chainalysis. This ranking is based on detailed analysis of the use of cryptocurrencies among the populations of countries around the world. In this article, we will consider why Ukraine is ranked so high, what it means for the economy, and prospects for the development. So, I'm going to scroll down here. Yes, reasons for Ukraine's high position. In general, Ukraine has great potential as one of the leading crypto hubs in Eastern Europe and consistently holds a leading position in the field of cryptocurrency adoption due to a number of factors. First, Ukrainians are actively using crypto assets as a means of protecting their savings in the context of economic instability and military aggression. Cryptocurrencies have become a tool of financial independence for many citizens. Secondly, the development of the crypto market in Ukraine is stimulated by the active participation of the IT community and entrepreneurs who find new ways to implement blockchain technologies in business processes. If you just got into the space in the last 6 months, 12 months, you may have missed how much crypto went into Ukraine in the first few months of that conflict. The numbers reported were insane. They were insane, and the inflows have not stopped. It has not stopped. That was my biggest thing about it when it all happened, is that our response was financial. And there has been a number of ramifications since that, and I'm going to show you that. But first, we have a clip here. Now, I need to preface this clip. We're going to jump to 16 minutes and 24 seconds, okay? So there is a bit of a language barrier here, okay? This is his translator. This is Mikhail Fedorov, Minister of Digital Transformation for Ukraine. What they're explaining is the point that I made earlier about government employees receiving their payments. This is the minister, and he's going to tell you verbatim, he witnessed the experiment, the pilot experiment. It was running on Stellar, and that he plans to be one of the first to use it. The translator on the right here is going to mispronounce the word Stellar. He did everything else great. But Fedorov, you'll hear him say it plain as day. Let me jump to this portion. Yep. Let's go.
What do you expect from the G7 this year? Thank you.
Щодо віртуальних активів і цифрових валют.
Regarding the digital assets and digital currencies.
2 тижні тому я вже бачив пілот електронної гривні в Україні.
2 weeks ago I saw a pilot of electronic e-hryvnia in Ukraine.
Тобто ми в цьому напрямку співпрацюємо з Stellar компанією і з одним з приватних українських банків.
In this regard, we are cooperating with Teller company and one of the Ukrainian private banks.
І я навіть планую стати першим, скажімо, тестувальником електронної гривні і почати отримувати електронною гривнею заробітну плату.
And I plan on becoming the first test user of the electronic hryvnia, and I plan to receiving my salary in e-hryvnia.
Але якщо спиратися на законодавство, то Національний банк планує наступного року, 2024 році, запустити вже масштабні пілоти в напрямку електронної гривні.
As far as the legislation is concerned, the National Bank of Ukraine plans to introduce legislation in 2024 on the introduction of the electronic hryvnia.
І, як я вже говорив, ми окремо прийняли законопроект про віртуальні активи.
As I mentioned already, we have passed a draft law on virtual assets.
І в цьому році я планую, щоб ми прийняли податковий законопроект і легалізували повністю, знайшли відповіді на всі питання щодо віртуальних активів.
And as I said, we're planning on addressing the taxation side of it, so we could have a complex, comprehensive approach to the legalization of all digital assets.
Україна кандидат в Європейський Союз.
Ukraine is a candidate country for the EU.
So that's going to discuss their geopolitical relationships with the EU. But notice how he said he's going to make use of the pilot. He's witnessed it firsthand with his eyes. On top of that, Ukraine has drafted a law to essentially make all digital assets legal. And to the point of the tax laws surrounding digital assets. I looked that up. It is still in the draft process. I haven't found anything as of yet to say that that has been confirmed. But this would make Ukraine probably the first country in the world with the clearest regulatory framework on crypto. Add on top of that the fact that the first and most used network in the country will be Stellar. How much more do I have to show you? Don't worry, I got a little bit more. So there has been ramifications coming out of this conflict, and they are in many different forms, guys. Down to the last few minutes here, so I'm gonna try to make this short and sweet. So when I first got into the space, I stumbled upon, well, not first got into the space, but shortly after the conflict here, we're gonna play this, gonna mute it in the background. Basically, this little video here illustrates a plan for a transformed Ukraine by 2030. It's supposed to incorporate new forms of bureaucracy based on blockchain, alternative energy. We've heard the story before. Self-driving vehicles. You have the ability to register documentations with the government with one click. Don't that sound like blockchain? I'm just saying. But the video compelled me. Paperless, cashless, all of that, right? She said that's what Zelensky wants. Many documentation about Zelensky calling for cashless societies. Again, when I saw this, I said, okay, it's impressive, it's compelling, we'll see what comes of it. Man, do you know that since then, how much U.S.-based tech companies have put into Ukraine? According to my research here in the Forbes article I'm going to share with you, it's north of $1.2 billion as of last year. Okay? And for the record, this clip here was also at Davos of 2023. So, since in the last 2 years, you have names like Microsoft, Google, Planeteer, as well as, what? This is the Planeteer one. Nope. Amazon. Ladies and gentlemen, Amazon Web Services supports Ukraine with $75 million for cloud technologies to help the digital state and economy work stably. It was this report, no, not Forbes, Fortune magazine. Microsoft tops the list of largest private donors to Ukraine, $430 million. Google also made the cut as well. There has been probably trillions of dollars at this point, definitely high billions, right, that has gone into Ukraine. We know about what has gone in from the government. The amount that has come from the private tech sector, I was completely unaware of. The reason I bring it up, folks, is because this creates the environment for Stellar-like technologies to live. And if you think that, okay, it's not a direct correlation between Microsoft and Stellar in Ukraine or Amazon Stellar in Ukraine, no, that's not, we don't need that. What we need is Microsoft, Google, Planeteer, Amazon, building out digital infrastructures that have the capacity to support blockchain-based networks. There are allies in this situation, is what I'm getting at here. So drawing back to the whole goal, oh yeah, did I mention Google? Google's there too. Yeah, Google been there too, right? right? This blew my mind. Last year, Microsoft, they extended their support throughout the year of 2023 for absolutely free. Free of charge. Microsoft, free of charge? Wow. Insane, right? But to draw it back to this clip here, and why I believe that the work that Stellar is doing in Ukraine, it's a shame that it isn't being spoken about. But if you really think about it, if you told people on a massive scale, and this ain't a massive scale, we got a small channel here, but if you told people on a massive scale that an American-based blockchain was actively in Ukraine over the last 3 years prior to the conflict, working on a digital currency project, everybody would probably rush into it and probably wouldn't rush into Bitcoin, because then they begin to ask questions. Why didn't they pick Bitcoin? I thought Bitcoin was the one that could do all of this. Or why didn't they pick XRP? I thought it was XRP that was supposed to be able to do all of this. Things move quick in this space. All the more reason why you need to equip yourself with the 5 verticals of crypto, the DHN Crypto Starter Kit. Again, links to that will be in the description, as well as various tools and resources that I personally use, that I have used over the last few years in this crypto space. That'll be in the pinned comment. Listen, folks, I get excited every time I go and dig up this information and get ready to present it to you guys, because I know it isn't being shared, and I know that I can share that feeling of inspiration with you. The same feeling that I get, I hope to share that with you. At the end of the day, that's why I sit down here at this microphone. With that, y'all know what time it is. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.